well-being is actually something that I've been doing some research on. And so recently I transitioned. I have a little story to go along with this one. I transitioned from being faculty at the University of Idaho to being a manager in ITS. Which was probably an odd transition, but I had been very tech heavy with the Docheo Center previously. And so I decided to take on the role of a collaboration and classroom technology services manager. And I had been doing research on digital well-being prior to this. So digital well-being is, there's lots and lots of definitions out there. Okay, so first I want to sort of give you what my vision of digital well-being is. And that is the balance of how we use technology in positive and negative ways in our life. Okay. And so not just our work life, but our personal life, and how that impacts several things. Okay. So, and if you think about this in terms of the breakdown, how it impacts my mental health, my emotional health, and my physical health. Okay, and so if you're thinking, digital well-being, you've probably heard that term come up. It's actually a fairly new term though, and it's gotten more use throughout the pandemic, right? Obviously, because folks are now interested in looking back at this and saying, well, what did this experience actually do to us, and what should we be looking for here, and what should we be worrying about relating to this? Okay. And I'm pulling up the chat on the side just to make sure that I'm watching that at the same time here, and hopefully my big screens will compensate for that. So I did put a little link here that goes out to digital capability, and I will go back to that first page because I'm not sure where that is, but this link right here will give you access to the entire presentation if you want the information to follow up on. Okay, so I put that in the chat for you for easy access. So if you go out to this link on digital capability, it breaks down this digital well-being concept a little bit more. And you get these sort of visuals to go along with it. Okay, so here we have at the top your awareness and capacity to change your digital practices. At the left, we've got the positive impacts of technologies on your well-being. At the right, the negative impacts of technologies on your well-being. And then in the middle, how technologies can improve digital well-being. Okay, so a lot of times when we think of technologies, we think how they impact us negatively, but then we leave out this positive piece. Okay, there are also, I just want to point out on this website that there are a couple papers that I've seen people pick up and utilize certain pieces of. Okay, so there is they're briefing papers, what they're called, and this one's digital well-being for you, your colleagues, and your students. And then the following one is good practice principles to support the digital well-being of students and staff. Okay, so if either one of those groups makes sense for you, those resources are going to be on that page. So I just wanted to point those out as well. So then when I talk about digital well-being, I start to ask questions. And so we're going to use the chat box for this. Which tools do you consider negative? So type in there any technologies that you have to utilize or that you find yourself utilizing that overall, maybe they're not completely negative, but they have more of a negative connotation in your mind to how you're utilizing them or what they're doing for you. Okay, so go ahead and use the chat for that. I see Facebook, Facebook all over the place. Anything that interrupts your workflow, absolutely. Twitter, Twitter's a big one for me. I don't touch Twitter. Instagram. So those definitely, those social media things really tend to come up as negative often. Okay, somebody put in Slack. Definitely. Constant Microsoft notifications. Thank you. My team's notifications drive me crazy some days. I've had to get used to that in ITS. Yeah, so thank you so much for contributing those. So when you think about those negative things, phone notifications, messenger, these are just some of the icons that might go along with that. However, what I now want you to shift to is, what are your positive ones? Okay, so here are some of my positives, but what tools do you use that you see in a more positive light? Okay, and then go ahead and share those through the chat. Okay, so YouTube can be like a downtime kind of thing for people, and they get to check out for a few minutes. Garmin, text messaging. I think if I couldn't text message, I wouldn't talk to people at all anymore. Outlook. Okay, Libby, Spotify. I use Spotify all the time. Couldn't do without it. Discord, Pandora. Yeah, Calm, Airbnb, Happy Color. Yeah, we're getting some good ones. Marco Polo's a fun one for sure. I've used that a little bit. Amazon Music and Zillow. So thank you so much. So now you can see, you know, not all technologies that we utilize do we have to see in this negative light. We have a lot of them that we think, oh, this actually makes my life a little bit better, right? And so we are trying to create this balance. The thing that we want to take away from this is that we do have the tools to control what we're doing, and to be able to say, hey, I could actually I could actually create a little bit more balance for myself if I put these tools into action. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of those things. First of all, I think the device that gets me the most is my phone. Okay, so any device that I'm carrying around with me tends to be the device that has the most impact on me continually throughout my day. You know, when I'm at work, I have my laptop, but my phone's always right there too. So I might be watching things on my laptop, but Teams is pinging me on my phone at the same time. I have control over that, however. So it's really my fault that that is happening. And so we need to come to the acceptance of that. I use an Android phone. I was an iPhone user at one time, and I switched back to Android. So I actually use a Google Pixel. And in the Android world, there is a program, an app called Digital Wellbeing that is usually built into the newer Android phones. And so you can kind of program to have your phone locked down in certain ways, especially during certain hours, so that you only have access to specific things. Okay. In the iPhone world, you've got the same thing, but it's called screen time. Okay. And even if your Android doesn't come with Digital Wellbeing, you can download that app and make it part of it. So we do have control over these things. You can see on the left-hand side that this might be what it looks like on one type of phone. That would be the iPhone, and then on the right-hand side, the Android. Okay, so what are the differences between these? Honestly, they're very close to the same. You have kind of the same set of controls. They're just called different things. So when I talk about digital well-being, there's also parental controls built into it. And so you have a dashboard where you can set your timers for your apps that you utilize. So maybe if I saw a negative Facebook thing, right? Maybe you still use Facebook, but maybe you limit yourself to 15 minutes a day. And I used to do that, just limit myself severely in certain things. And I actually enjoy that. You have wind down, so that at a certain time of the day, your phone starts to, you know, sort of black out. Focus mode is probably one of my favorite controls, and focus mode does not allow me to access certain apps during working hours. So I have my focus mode set up between 8 and 5, and I can't access any social media kind of things without overriding that in the system. Okay. Thank you, Vicki, for including that link. You also have the ability to manage your notifications. You have to think anytime you download something new, a new app, a new software, notifications are typically automatically enabled. And if you don't want those notifications, then you need to go in and shut those down. And I have something coming up on that. You can switch to do not disturb. And there's some other things within the digital well-being. In screen time, same kind of controls, but they're called something different. So downtime, app limits, communication limits, always allowed, and content and privacy restrictions are all available on the iPhone. So my first piece of advice to people is always stop the notifications, right? If notifications drive you crazy, even if you are at work, sometimes we have to have certain notifications, but others we can pretty much put off, okay? So, where do you go to do these things? Well, in Microsoft Outlook, you can look at Outlook preferences, notifications, and sounds and turn things off there. For reminders, you can go in and turn off reminders. Microsoft Teams, I think, would drive me completely insane if I didn't turn it off in certain aspects. So you can definitely control almost completely which things you're utilizing within Microsoft Teams, which things you're receiving those notifications on. Gmail, of course, if you're a Gmail user versus a Outlook user, you want to be able to lock that down. Social media, each of social media platform has notifications, and they always also have the ability to, for instance, not allow people to post things on your page. So on Facebook, for instance, people have to get my verification before they're allowed to post content to my page. And so it kind of just, shoots me a message. Will you allow this to show up in your, I can't remember what view it is, but so I can verify yes or no. And a lot of times I say no, depending on what the content is. So, for social media, you want to consider that for each social media tool that you utilize. And then other things, Slack, Reddit, Amazon, we all have control of different things, but we have to lock them down individually for the most part. YouTube, if you're a YouTube user, you do have access to something called a time watched profile. And it will do things like remind you to take a break. I don't know that I use YouTube that heavily, that this would be helpful to me, but I think my teenage son might benefit from this. Okay. So, maybe you can see some options that would be good for other people. Vicki says, I like using filters in Gmail to pre-assign archiving tags. Yes. So I think there are so many things that you can do with a Gmail account versus the things that I've found in my Outlook that it really, really helps me a great deal. Another thing I use is Chrome extensions. So I don't know how many of you are into Chrome extensions and find those valuable, but because Chrome is my main browser, I use Chrome extensions constantly, quite honestly. And here are a few of my favorites, or my recommendations, right? So AdBlock Plus, if you're using videos ever in a context where you're showing them to others, especially, I used to be faculty and I still teach here at the university, having AdBlock Plus loaded allows me to skip the commercials at the beginning of a video, and it does it automatically. And so that is really helpful. Every once in a while, I have to deactivate AdBlock Plus or whitelist a certain web page that won't allow me to utilize it if I have it turned on. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, and it just kind of works magically in the background. So that's really an invaluable one for me. If you are a Google user, I used Keep for a long time to keep all of my notes. Recently, because I switched to ITS, and now I'm, sort of immersed in the Microsoft world, I'm using OneNote instead, but basically do the same types of things where you can very easily tag a website and put it in your notes so that you have access to it later on. So that's kind of one of those Chrome extensions that I would keep up in the corner all the time so that I could get to it easily. Another one that I use, and I don't know if you've ever seen this one, so this is Mercury Reader. And what Mercury Reader looks like is a little spaceship. And so if I'm out on the internet, and let me just go to an article here. Let's try to get something that's, here we go. We'll try this one. Okay, so just random choice here. If I go up here and I hit on the little rocket icon, you can see that it's taken that for me. And now I'm looking at just the article text, and I don't have all of those other distractions going on the page. The other thing that's really nice about this is if you're a Kindle user, you can send it to your Kindle. And so I do that as well. And then you can play with your settings in here. So I have it in dark mode, but you could change it to light mode. You can change the typography slightly, not a big difference there. And then you can change the text size. So if you have trouble with text size and you need to enlarge it, that's really easy to do with this one as well. So that helps me to be less distracted whenever I have to like break down and I need to read this thing, right? I need to focus on this thing. Another one that I find very useful is called Reading Roller. So often when I'm reading, I might be trying to focus, but somebody might walk into my office or call me or whatever, and I lose my space. I lose track of where I was. So Reading Roller is just, it highlights the line that you're on and use your up down arrows to control it. And so you can just kind of follow along. It actually helps you to focus better on the article too, especially when you're reading on a screen versus on a piece of paper. And then the last two I have on here are really just about this whole digital well-being and control concept, okay? So if I click over to one of those, give me a second here, it's not allowing me as much control as it did. So this one, I appear to be a little bit frozen, sorry. Yep, I am frozen. That's okay, we'll get through it. So the other two Chrome extensions I have at the bottom of the page are the one with the owl allows you to control in the same way that you did with your ones on the phone, like the digital well-being app, for instance. Okay, so I am still frozen. I'm going to go into stop share here and see if that helps anything.
Did you freeze up, Cassidy?
I did freeze up. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Do you need some help?
Yeah, that would be great. It won't let me go out of stop share.
Okay, let me just switch over really quick and then, oops. Now I lost the whole thing. Great. Great moderation here, huh?
Not your fault at all. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, you want to try to share again?
So it still says that I'm sharing on my side and it's still frozen.
Okay, I'm going to cancel or stop.
So a little story to go along with JOMO. I used to be a technology specialist for a school district, K-12 in Pennsylvania. And at the time I lived off the grid. So I was kind of the IT person when I went to school, but when I got home in the evening, I couldn't even charge my phone. So I did not have devices. I did not have electricity. So I really appreciated all of the downtime that came with that. However, that becomes a real issue for a lot of people, right? A lot of people are like, no, I have to have access to my stuff. So if you can learn how to, be comfortable with stepping away, then that joy of missing out actually becomes something very important to you. So I don't do it to the same degree anymore because I don't live off the grid anymore. But nowadays I make sure that I have those times where I set aside all of my technology, and those are usually the weekends or the evenings for me, to just step away from everything. I actually do that daily too during a lunch hike. So I take my lunch hour and I go out for a hike and I step away from everything. And that's a really nice way to be able to do that and to get off on my own. Okay, so I put links there under FOMO and JOMO if you want to dive a little bit more deeply into those concepts and see exactly what they're all about, because I think that they can be wonderful to sort of dig into a little bit more deeply and see, you know, how does this really relate to me? What does this have to do with the way that I perceive using technology? The next thing I wanted to do is go through some of the ways that I try to bring a different feel into my life with all the technology that inundates everything that I do, right? It's required as part of my job, or the main part of my job anymore. And so I need to make sure that I'm kind of controlling that, and then I have a way to sort of bank over that. So the first slide I put next to that, it would be slide number 13, is called the fluid stance. So I don't know if there's anybody out there that uses fluid stance. If you do, you can give me something in the chat on that. I see a couple people in the chat, but I don't see a whole lot of action. But Fluid Stance is a company that came out with a sort of balance board for your desk. Okay. So a lot of people have, over probably the last 10 years, especially, gone to a more idea of wellness in the workplace. And so I know when we moved into a new building here on campus, everybody in that building was given the option to go to a standing desk, or one that, you know, would fluctuate between standing and sitting. And so the fluid stance was something that I grasped onto, and I use one at my desk all of the time. I love it. And it helps me focus on my work. It really does. The other thing that Fluid Stance offers is these other little desk things. And so one of them I have on my desk right now, it's called the Slope, and it's just a little metallic whiteboard that you can kind of write little notes on, and it sits on your desk, and mine has an auto phone charger and everything built into it as well. So it works really well for me. And so I found that to be something really positive in my life, or the things that I can get just from Fluid Stance. Okay. Let's see here. The next slide talks about Camuso. And if you could see me right now, you would see that I have the little necklace on right now, which is Camuso. And this is a little breathing device, right? So when we're talking about well-being, it usually has to do with us dealing a little bit with mindfulness as well. And so this is a device that you kind of exhale through this little thing. It kind of looks like a whistle, but it is not a whistle. And it just helps you to be more mindful about your breathing. So this is something that I caught on to, that I actually went out and bought one and started utilizing it on a regular basis. So some days I wear it around my neck if I'm feeling stressed in the morning. Other days, you know, I kind of ignore it until I'm home in the evening. But sort of a fun concept. And all these should be linkable too. So if you go to the slide, you should be able to link out to the device itself. There's a really fun one called Core, and I've got lots of people asking me about, well, what's your experience with Core? Yeah, so the Camuso design I really like, because it's so simple and small, and it just travels with me. But Core, if you're into meditation at all, can make a total difference in how successful you are with meditating and with pulling away and focusing on your well-being. And so Core is a technology, and it's a device that fits in your hands, and it sort of vibrates and has like sort of different intensities that go along with it. And so the idea is that while you're meditating, rather than having monkey mind, where your mind's kind of flying all over the place, because you've got this thing in your hands, that is sort of pulling you in to be present. Okay, so be in the moment. And Core, if you buy the subscription that goes along with it, comes with just access to hundreds of different meditations. And some of them are just music in the background, and others are guided meditations, and some are guided towards emotional health, and others are physical health. And So they're sort of all over the board, different meditations that you can access. I bought Core and utilized it for a few months. A friend of mine is borrowing it now and utilizing it. And I think it's just one of those things that I definitely found it worthwhile. And it really did help me anyway with the meditation aspect. There's another one on here that I've used a little bit, but not as much probably as I used the other two, Core and Camuso Design. And this is called Active 5, and it's a little pressure device. So you're putting pressure on the device to utilize it, but it's all about increasing your muscle tone. And so there's different exercises that you have access to, and everything's free once you buy the device. And you just go in and you can say, oh, I want to focus on upper body, or I want to focus on lower body, or I want to focus on core. And you can use this little device in order to do that. And if you go into the website there, you can see a little bit more about how it works and how you can utilize it. It's sort of a fun device. I haven't used that one quite as much, however. And then the last device I have is called Upright. And I know some of you have probably heard of Upright. Upright has become fairly popular, and they're to a much more solid version than where they used to be. At one point, Upright, you had to use sticky pads to put it in between your shoulder blades. And I'm actually allergic to adhesive, so I couldn't do that because it would make me break out in a rash, right? A little TMI, a little too much information. But now they make an Upright where you can buy a necklace to go with it, and it hangs off of the back of the necklace. And so it's still in between your shoulder blades, but now it's not stuck to your back. And Upright is all about posture, okay? And we know that wellness and posture are very interrelated, and that our posture alone can help with our mental well-being. And so especially when we're, utilizing a bunch of technologies and we're sitting at a desk and we're often hunched over, that can be a real contributing factor to our well-being. So Upright, I will tell you, my experience with it was pretty positive the first time I utilized it. The second time, it just annoyed me because it kept going off, and I kind of had to keep revisiting the settings and turning them down so that it wouldn't ping me every 5 seconds that my posture was poor. But the goal behind it is that you're supposed to set time limits so that maybe you're only focusing at first when you get the device, you're focusing on good posture for a half an hour out of the entire day. And then maybe you gradually increase to an hour, and then 2 hours and 3 hours and so on. So you're kind of building it up over time because, let's face it, most of us do have poor posture. And it definitely takes some time to get used to what it might look like with improving that and the effect that has on us. The other things that I have built into here are resources. Okay, so there are tons of resources out there and programs available related to digital well-being. And these are the things that I try to share with people, and I try to share them with other faculty on campus, certainly with my students, and now with ITS staff, right? To start being more mindful about all of these ways that we're utilizing technologies. And there's some easy ways to do that. With my students, I point out to them that there are actually ISTE standards related to digital citizenship, and that each one of those ISTE standards, or each group of those ISTE standards, has some amount of digital well-being within it. Okay, especially I think most explicitly with the coaching standards, but it's in there in some way with all of them, with the teaching ones, the learning standards for students, and then the standards for administrators as well. There is, of course, the Google Digital Wellbeing. So if you have never gone out to Google Digital Wellbeing website, it is wellbeing.google. And if you go there, they will give you a set of questions that make you think a little bit about how you're utilizing technology and how that might be impacting your well-being. And on the next slide, I have what those questions look like. So you have this idea of I tend to lose track of time when I'm on my phone. I feel the need to check my phone right away if it vibrates or makes a sound. And so you kind of rate yourself in each of these statements to say, you know, if that's a real problem for you or not. The nice thing then is that Google Digital Wellbeing comes back at you with your results in terms of, well, here's some things you could try, right? So they really are trying to promote being more mindful about your well-being when it comes to utilizing technologies. And they've even gone so far, if you look at the next page, to go into something called Google Digital Wellbeing Experiments. And these are basically sets of apps that people are building to try to find new ways to pull away from technology. So if you go out and visit the experiments page, you'll see some of those things that people are developing, new technologies, if you please, to fight against the negative impacts of technology. There's also a bunch of digital safety resources. So if you have kids, or you worry about that age group and you have any contact with people that teach or anything like that, these are great tools for the classroom that relate to this idea of having digital safety for students, especially. There's another website called Building Healthy Digital Habits. This one is, again, more, teaching and learning geared, so it would be for younger students. There is if anybody has ever used Brain Pop with their kids or seen Brain Pop used in a classroom situation, Brain Pop has a digital citizenship site with lots of great stuff on it. There's one called Common Sense Media, and Common Sense Media, if you've never been kind of immersed in common sense, there are lots and lots of resources out there where you can utilize full lessons, or maybe just take a couple of their resources and use them. There are also game-like apps for students that are for different grade levels. So one of them is for elementary, and one of them is for middle school. But those common sense resources, I find every once in a while, I bring one of those topics up in my college classes with my students at this age group. And sometimes I'm pulling stuff when I'm talking to colleagues about different digital well-being concepts too. So those kind of cross over the different age groups pretty well, I find. If you're ever interested in courses, there are full-on digital citizenship courses out there. So they would have pieces about them dealing with the digital well-being. So you see one there from the Digital Citizenship Institute. There's one from EverFi, which has great resources for classrooms. And then most interestingly, when we talked about all those negative ones and people started plugging in Facebook has a guide, a set of resources on digital literacy. Okay. And part of those are on well-being, so if you go out to their guide and it's linked there, you can see the different categories they have, but definitely there is some well-being built into that as well. There's an open course out there called Stress and Anxiety in the Digital Age, the Dark Side of Technology, right? And so I think that the dark side of technology was always more forefront, whereas the bright side of technology tends to get, I think, any more, kind of hidden in the background. And then there is something called Digital Wellbeing Educators that you can get a little bit more involved with digital wellbeing. So these are some of the things that I started to ask people over the last year and a half, especially since we got into the pandemic. And since digital, the option to unplug often became not an option anymore, right? And so people really got bogged down in trying to get that balance going for them. And so if you look at the list of questions that I came up with, and these are just things to think about, what does the term digital well-being mean to you? Have you used any features on your smartphone or other devices to limit your use of certain technologies? Have you developed strategies for limiting your use of certain technologies? Did you attempt to unplug beyond work hours or school hours? Okay. Did technology use impact your sleep, your routine, your sense of self? And I think when I say impact your sleep, maybe people have something to share in chat over there. But there are certain apps that can be very helpful for that. There are lots of technologies that are just about now giving us better sleep, right? I wear a watch. Lots of us wear fitness watches. I wear a fitness watch that, tracks sleep every night and then tells me what my rating of sleep was. And I can honestly tell my day goes much differently on nights where it tracked that I slept really well versus nights where I maybe only got like 4.5 hours of sleep and I was very restless, and it will give me all of this background information. But when you think just about what are your digital habits right before you go to sleep, there are certain things, and Google's digital well-being, for instance, will point some of these out that, it's good practice to stop looking at your phone a couple hours before you go to bed and just, turn that piece off and just walk away from it. Stop looking at devices because it actually takes us a long time to shut down after we have screen time. And so being able to fall asleep after you were just, looking at your emails on your phone is not going to happen for most people. Did technology use impact? Yeah, so I talked about your sleep, but did it impact your routines in your life? Did it impact your sense of self? And I think those things have been especially important during the pandemic. Some people have managed to build new relationships with people that they didn't know before because they came up with these digital connections that they didn't have previously. Other people found it, very detrimental in that, of all things, a Zoom meeting, which we are in right now, became a burden, and we didn't want to have to go into another Zoom meeting for any reason, right? Were there certain technologies that you feel may have impacted you negatively, positively, or both? And so that was one of the questions I asked in the slides. Was there a moment when you realized the impacts that technology was having on your well-being? And so if you think back over the last year plus at this point, was there a specific moment where you thought, wow, this is getting really bad for me? And I think my moment for me was when I was teaching and I realized how disconnected I felt from my students. And that was the first time that had ever happened to me, that I felt that disconnected from them. And that was hard to deal with, having been an educator for 23 years, I think it was at this point, that I just kind of had to accept that and come to terms with that and what that meant for my classes and how I could go about changing that. Here's a good one. Were there any technologies that you stopped using due to increased screen time? So were there actually things that you just decided, I'm getting rid of this, I'm pulling this out of my life? So for me, I disengaged with Twitter several years ago, and I haven't used it since. I probably still have an account out there somewhere, but I don't use it at all. So that was something that happened to me a long time ago. But there are other ones that, sometimes I'm just like, I need to walk away from this thing. My Facebook account, I disengaged with that for about 6 months during the pandemic, just stepped away from it, and just stepped back into it recently, and it doesn't annoy me nearly as much as it used to. This is an interesting one. So think about this. How has online or virtual teaching, or not even teaching, meetings, trainings, whatever you have to experience, affected your relationships with others? Okay. So I see that relationship change, like I was talking about with my students, being very interesting. And in some ways it's become much more positive. But in other ways, it's gone in the opposite direction. And so again, finding a balance there. What can we do to straighten that out and make it a little bit more feasible? And so you can kind of look through the rest of those. I think that most of those are straightforward, but it's just some ideas to generate on this topic.
Unfortunately, I think we may have lost Cassidy again. We are towards the end of the time. Please take note of Cassidy's information here on the screen, if you will, if you'd like to reach out to her to find out more information. I believe she has shared the presentation inside the chat as well. If you want to sift back through that really quick and find it, or we will be also saving these recordings and sharing them out probably the week after the conference is out. So you'll want to watch for that as well. Please do fill out the survey for today's session. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but as you know, we live in tech and it happens. So thank you so much for being here today. And please reach out to Cassidy if you have any questions related to her presentation. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Oh, she's back. Yay.
Yeah, it totally just bumped me off like right at the end.
Well, you did a great job, Cassidy. Thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you so much. And thanks for working with me around all the issues.
No problem. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.